So here is my Gibraltar three-sided chrome rack, and in this example I'm just showing the first section, the main front section with the longest crossbar. I believe off the top of my head it is 46 inches long. Don't quote me on that. But what's great about this drum rack is that it has 4 vertical post stands. And in this I have 1, 2, and then the third, there's a wing that connects here, and the same on the other side. And it has a corresponding leg to each of those. Now what I did with this Gibraltar rack is turn it into a multi-purpose movable conga and percussion rack. I don't even use this for my drum set. So I got inspired from seeing the Gon Bops conga rack, but it didn't make sense for me to have a Gibraltar one and a Gon Bops one, so what I did is turn my existing rack into something able to house my conga drums. So what I did is actually I added these clamps. These are Gibraltar clamps. I don't have the model right off the top of my head, but these clamp onto a vertical post, and then these clamp onto a horizontal post. And then the angle can be adjusted right here. So the same on the other side. And then I added the same length cross curved bar, I believe 46 inches again, to add the support for the bottom of the drums as well as the mounting for the top of the drums. Now up here I had to put on the drums, the congas themselves, a mount that would fit into these Gon Bop mounts. Now I learned the hard way, and Gon Bops makes 2 versions of these clamps. The first version has this clamp down on this side, and then this is actually on the other side. I didn't know that, and learned that the hard way when I tried to mount my drums, and this kept hitting the actual drums, preventing them from actually sitting in here. So I later discovered that for the drums to fit in, both of these clamps had to be on the opposite side, away from the drum shell. So eventually I got that squared away, and I got 3 of those, and I'm able to fit 3 LP Performer Series congas, a quinto conga and a tumbao, perfectly spaced on this 46-inch bar. Depending on the size of your drums, they may or may not be able to fit. I literally have ½ an inch or less space between the drums, and it fits perfectly. So all these are held on in place with memory clamps. These are Gibraltar memory clamps. And so down below, what I did was I found these Gon Bops conga bass brackets, and they kind of sit right here in these Gibraltar clamps. So this part's for the tube, and then this is for any cymbal arms or accessories, but obviously in this case I'm using, so this supports the bottom of the shell, and this goes on the, so the shell on the drum actually sits right here. And I have 3 of those as well. Now what's also a huge thing that I did to this rack was changing the feet. Now the original, all the drum racks come with rubber, heavy duty rubber feet on the ends here. What I did was take them all off and put a caster on each of the feet. So 2 per leg, so that's 8 casters total, which then makes my whole rig mobile. It is able to roll with ease, and these are locking casters too. So if you have quick on and off stage, granted you're in a venue with enough space to have a percussion rig like this, you can roll on and off fairly quickly if there's a short changeover time. And I learned that after my first year of touring, having 6 beefy stagehand guys literally pick up and move my rack, can damage the piping, the clamps, do all sorts of bad things to your setup, and I didn't want to do that. So, funny thing is regarding these casters in the drums on this portion of the rack is balance, counterbalance. Literally just a few nights ago, see the position of this vertical leg bracket in relation to the L leg. I used to have the center directly over the middle, and for years I never had an issue. Obviously, once you put the drums on, the weight of the rack then becomes shifted more towards the player side, and it worked. But I realized, oh my goodness, I had all this extra space. If you, by pushing the vertical posts further towards the front or audience side, it then gives more counterbalance on the legs here and over there for the weight of the drums. And silly me, I do not know why I never did that, but now it's only going to add the stability when putting, especially having 3 drums on. 2 drums is one thing, but having the 3, that's a lot of weight. That's almost upwards of 100 pounds of drum weight, and you don't want your rack to flip. So that's pretty important, and that took me a couple of years to realize that. Again, also everything has memory clamps to hold everything securely in place, and everything is tightened and loosened either by wing nuts or drum lugs. Same for the casters. Those are all key locked. And so this is the front of my rack. Now I've experimented over the years changing things, but pretty much this portion has remained the same. I've always had the 3 mounting spots. My congas used to actually be on separate stands in front of this rack, and I go, that's kind of silly. Let's put them on the rack and make it all mobile. And again, in the vertical posts of the stand, what's great is Gibraltar includes, you can kind of see here, different plastic spacers. And this is a thicker spacer to fit the cymbal boom arm post that I have in here. And if you have other hardware, you can swap these out for a thinner spacer and put wider tubing in here. For example, I mount my Roland electronic pads in these vertical posts, and I use the Roland pipes, stand extensions, which are thicker than the Gibraltar cymbal boom arms. So sometimes I swap these out. Typically, they stay the same. I don't swap them out per show. It's once I figure my setup, these stay the same. But they're easy to swap out. You just remove the wing nuts and the washers and just pop them right out. It takes a few seconds to do. I'll show you how easy it is to pop the drums in and mount them on this rack. In my setup, I like to put the smallest drum right in the middle. So this is the bracket. This is the Gon Bops bracket, which I then installed on the shell of the drum. Just to do this, you gotta take the head off and tighten from the inside. But this little flat bracket with the section sticking down is what sits inside the Gon Bops clamps on the rack itself. And it's pretty easy to install. Just make sure your clamp is open on the top. It sits. And I've already, just tighten that up there. I've already measured out the distance, the height of the drum. So this crossbar is important on the bottom. Knowing the height of where these support brackets on the bottom of this rack go and support the hoop or the bottom part of your drums. It just gives it extra stability. And you don't want, you can't really just only mount your drums from the top and have your drum swing free. They have to be supported at the bottom. Otherwise they'll get damaged on the rack. It just won't work. It has to have an extra support bar to support the bottom of the drums. So now it's very, very secure. There's no tightening or anything that needs to be done at the bottom. The space, the width of the shell, and the rubber bracket against the outside of the shell, that's all already measured out and taken care of. And these are easily adjustable with the wing nuts down here to get the spacing of your drum, your distance forward or back. You want to make sure it's very evenly spaced, and so your drum sits vertical. You don't want your drum to be tilted inwards or tilted outwards. So there's a lot of finessing, a lot of fine adjustments that need to be made. And going to do the same over here. I only have 2 of my hand drums out at the moment. And again, tighten it up. There's just a little clearance in between the drums. They fit, 3 drums fit perfectly in this rack. And so for my height, I'm 6'2". Thing to note, if you add casters to your rack, you are going to add about 2 to 3 inches, probably about 3 inches of vertical height to your rack. So keep that in mind if you're a shorter person. These drums sit just right below my navel. But for me, perfect hand positioning. I don't have to physically lift my hands up or my arms. They sit naturally, which is perfect height. So you might have to play with your crossbars to adjust and find the ideal height for you. And you don't have to put casters on your rack if you're not looking to move it. But I like that because now I can move my whole rack with ease. And it gets heavy, especially when you add on cymbals, percussion, another drum. That weight adds up. So now you have a better idea of how I piece together my Gibraltar drum rack into a mobile percussion rig. By using different hardware, different clamps, you can pretty much position any drum or piece of hardware in any spot position that you want or can think of. So in future videos, I will show you how the Gon Bops bongo basket clamp is mounted onto my rack and how I can position my bongos themselves in relation to my conga drums. So for more videos and information and you like what you see, just click subscribe at the bottom and I will get more videos to you soon.